Every parent's worst nightmare isn't losing a child to illness or accident, it's losing them to a darkness you never saw coming. When Marcus Chen pulled over on the Meridian Bridge that foggy Tuesday morning, he thought he was just helping someone with car trouble. Instead, he found 17-year-old Sophia standing on the wrong side of the guardrail, her designer shoes balanced on a 6-inch ledge, staring down at the churning waters below. In that moment, Marcusa, single father barely keeping his own life together, became the only thing standing between a desperate teenager and the abyss. What he didn't know was that saving her would change everything. Not just for Sophia, but for the billionaire father who had no idea his daughter was drowning in plain sight. Before we dive in, make sure to hit subscribe and leave a comment. Where in the world are you watching from? The fog rolled off San Francisco Bay like smoke from a dying fire, thick enough to swallow the red towers of the Golden Gate and leave only ghosts in its wake. Marcus Chen squinted through his windshield wipers, the steady thrum of rain against glass keeping time with his exhaustion. 6 a.m. Another sleepless night behind him, another day of pretending he had it all figured out ahead. His phone buzzed against the dashboard, a text from his ex-wife about Emma's soccer practice, something about cleats and permission slips, and could he please remember this time? Marcus glanced at the message and felt that familiar weight settle in his chest. The weight of failing at things that should be simple. The Meridian Bridge stretched ahead, its span disappearing into the gray morning like a question mark. Traffic moved in sluggish waves, brake lights blooming red through the mist. Marcus adjusted his grip on the steering wheel and tried to calculate how much coffee he'd need to make it through. Another day of coding, another evening of homework battles, another night of wondering if he was enough. That's when he saw the car. A silver Porsche, hazards blinking, pulled over in the emergency lane about halfway across the bridge. Steam rose from its hood in pale ribbons. Marcus slowed, muscle memory from his father kicking in. You stop for people in trouble. Always. Even when you're running late, even when you have your own problems. He pulled his old Honda behind the Porsche and stepped out into the damp air. The fog was thicker here, transforming familiar shapes into something alien. The bridge cables disappeared into gray, nothing above his head. "Hey!" he called toward the Porsche. "You need help?" No answer. The driver's door hung open, but he couldn't see anyone inside. Marcus walked closer, his footsteps echoing strangely in the muffled air. That's when he saw her. She stood on the other side of the guardrail, her back to him, 17, maybe 18. Dark hair whipping in the wind, designer jeans, and a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than Marcus made in a month. Her hands gripped the top rail behind her, knuckles white against the metal. For a moment, Marcus couldn't process what he was seeing. The fog shifted, and he caught a glimpse of her feet-expensive sneakers balanced on a concrete ledge barely 6 inches wide. Below that, nothing but air and churning water and rocks that would end everything. Jesus, the word escaped him like a prayer. He didn't shout, didn't run. Every instinct screamed at him to move fast. But something deeper, maybe just being a parent, told him that sudden movements would be the wrong choice here. Instead, he walked, slowly, quietly, until he was maybe 10 feet away from the guardrail. "Hi," he said, like he was greeting a neighbor at the mailbox. The girl's shoulders tensed, but she didn't turn around. "Go away." Her voice was steady. That scared him more than if she'd been crying. "I'm Marcus." He kept his tone conversational, even as his heart hammered against his ribs. "Car trouble?" A bitter laugh. "You could say that." Marcus leaned against his Honda, creating some distance, making himself smaller, less threatening. He'd learned this with Emma during her worst tantrums. Sometimes you had to get quiet to be heard. "Yeah, cars are the worst. Mine's held together with prayer and duct tape." He pulled out his phone, not to call 911, not yet, but to check the time. "You got someone you can call?" "For the car, I mean." "Someone." The word carried enough weight to sink ships. "Yeah, I've got someone." The fog swirled between them, and Marcus caught a better look at her profile. Pretty in that effortless way that came with money and good genetics. But her i7 from this distance, he could see they were empty in a way that had nothing to do with the weather. "I'm guessing that someone doesn't really listen much," Marcus said. This time she did turn, just slightly. Enough for him to see the surprise flicker across her face. "How do you—" She stopped herself, shook her head. "You don't know anything about me." "No," Marcus agreed. "But I know that look. My daughter gets it sometimes. When she's trying to tell me something important and I'm too busy checking email to hear her." The girl's grip on the railing tightened. "Your daughter, Emma, she's 12, thinks I'm an idiot most of the time." Marcus smiled even though she couldn't see it. "She's probably right." "Where is she now?" "Home. Getting ready for school. Probably putting twice as much cereal in her bowl as she'll actually eat and leaving the mess for me to clean up." "You're not with her?" There was something sharp in her voice now. An accusation, maybe. Or just pain looking for a place to land. "No," Marcus said simply. "I'm here." The admission hung in the air between them. Because he should be home. Should be making breakfast and checking homework and being the parent Emma needed. Instead, he was standing on a bridge in the fog, talking to a stranger who might be about to— "Why?" the girl asked. "Because you're here too." She turned around then, fully, and Marcus got his first clear look at her face. Beautiful, yes, but hollow. Like someone had scooped out everything that mattered and left only the shell. "You don't even know my name." "Doesn't matter. It's Sophia." "Nice to meet you, Sophia." She stared at him for a long moment, this middle-aged man in a wrinkled shirt and yesterday's jeans, leaning against a car that had seen better decades. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Someone trying to talk me down, telling me it gets better, that I have so much to live for." Her voice went flat again. "All the things people say when they don't know what else to do." Marcus nodded. "Yeah, that sounds exhausting." Sophia blinked. "You're not going to try to save me?" "I don't think I can save anyone. Hell, I can barely save myself most days." "Then why are you here?" Marcus considered this. In the distance, he could hear traffic picking up as the morning commute began in earnest. Soon there would be other cars, other people, and this moment, whatever it was, would be over. "My daughter," he said finally. "Emma. Last week she asked me something." Sophia waited. "She wanted to know if I ever felt like giving up. Like everything was too hard and maybe it would be easier to just stop." The girl's breath caught. "What did you tell her?" "That I did. Feel like that sometimes? And that when I do, I try to remember that someone might need me to stick around, even if I can't see who or why." "That's it? That's your answer?" "That's my answer." Sophia looked down at the water, then back at Marcus. "You think someone needs me to stick around?" "I think someone needs you right now to come back over that railing and tell me why your car broke down on the worst possible day." She almost smiled. "Almost. It didn't break down." "No? I turned off the engine and put on the hazards." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Made it look like car trouble so people wouldn't stop and ask questions. Smart. Until you stopped anyway." "Yeah, well, I'm not that smart." This time she did smile, just a little. "Your daughter's lucky." She'd disagree. "She's wrong." Marcus felt something shift in the air between them. Not resolution, not yet, but possibility. Like a door opening just a crack. "Sophia," he said carefully. "What happened?" Her smile faded. "Nothing. Everything. I don't know." She gripped the railing tighter. "Do you ever feel like you're screaming and no one can hear you?" "Every day." "Even with your daughter?" "Especially with my daughter." Sophia studied his face. "But you keep trying." "I keep trying." "Why?" Marcus thought about this. About Emma's laugh when he finally got a joke right. About the way she still reached for his hand sometimes when they crossed the street, even though she pretended to be too old for it. About all the small moments that made the hard ones bearable. Because the alternative is leaving her alone in a world that's already too hard. "And I can't do that to her." "Even if she'd be better off without you?" "Especially then." Sophia's eyes filled with tears for the first time since he'd found her. "What if no one would miss you? What if the world would just keep going?" "The world would keep going," Marcus said, "but it would be different, smaller." Like turning off a light in a room and pretending the shadows don't matter? She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. That's not fair. What's not fair? Making it about other people. Making it about responsibility. Marcus shrugged. Life's not fair. But it's still life. They stood in silence for a while, listening to the fog move across the bridge cables like whispered secrets. Marcus checked his phone again. 6:45. Emma would be wondering where he was. Would be eating cereal alone in their quiet kitchen, maybe humming the song she'd been practicing for chorus. I should call my dad, Sophia said suddenly. Yeah? He doesn't know where I am. He thinks I'm asleep in my room. She looked at her phone. He'll be getting ready for work, checking the markets in Tokyo. Will he answer? Sophia's laugh was hollow. He always answers. For work. What about for you? That's the question, isn't it? Marcus waited. Sometimes the best thing you could do was just wait. He loves me, Sophia said finally. I know he does, but love and attention aren't the same thing, are they? No, they're not. I could disappear, and he might not notice for days. Weeks, maybe, as long as someone kept transferring money into my accounts. That why you're out here? Sophia shook her head. I'm out here because I'm tired. Tired of being invisible. Tired of pretending everything's fine when it's not. Tired of having everything I could ever want except the one thing I actually need. Which is, to matter. To someone. Anyone. Marcus felt something break open in his chest. You matter to me. You don't even know me. I know enough. What do you know? I know you're 17 and you should be worried about prom dresses and college applications, not standing on a bridge in the fog. I know you're smart enough to make your suicide look like an accident so your father wouldn't have to live with the guilt. I know you're brave enough to tell a stranger the truth about how you feel. Sophia's tears came harder now. That's not brave. Sure it is. Truth is always brave. Then why does it hurt so much? Because the truth is that we're all just making it up as we go along. Parents, kids, everyone. And sometimes we get it wrong. What if getting it wrong means someone gets hurt? Then we try to do better next time. What if there is no next time? Marcus met her eyes. There's always a next time. As long as you're breathing, there's always a next time. Sophia stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she turned around and climbed back over the guardrail. Marcus exhaled for what felt like the first time in hours. Sophia stood on solid ground now, arms wrapped around herself, shivering. Marcus shrugged out of his jacket and handed it to her. She took it without a word. What now? She asked. Now you call your dad. And say what? Whatever you need to say. Sophia pulled out her phone, stared at the screen for a moment, then hit a number. It rang once before a voice answered crisp, professional, distracted. Sophia, is everything all right? It's early. Dad. Her voice cracked on the word. I need you. Silence on the other end. Then, where are you? The Meridian Bridge. The bridge? What are you doing there? Sophia looked at Marcus, who nodded encouragement. I was going to jump, she said quietly. The silence stretched longer this time. When her father spoke again, his voice was different. Smaller. Are you safe now? Yes. Don't move. I'm coming. The line went dead. Sophia stared at her phone, then at Marcus. He's coming, she said, like she couldn't quite believe it. Yeah. What if he's angry? What if he's scared? Sophia considered this. I never thought about him being scared. Parents are scared all the time. We're just good at hiding it. They waited together as the fog began to thin and the bridge revealed itself in pieces gables, towers, the distant shore. Marcus thought about Emma, probably finishing breakfast now, probably wondering why he wasn't there to drive her to school. Marcus, Sophia said. Yeah? Thank you. For what? For stopping. For staying. For not trying to fix me. You don't need fixing, don't I? You need someone to listen. There's a difference. A black sedan appeared through the fog, moving fast. It pulled up behind Sophia's Porsche, and a man got out tall, silver-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Marcus made in 3 months. He moved toward them with the kind of purpose that had built empires, but when he reached Sophia, he stopped, just stopped and looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "Sophie," he said softly. She started crying again. "I'm sorry, Dad, I'm so sorry." And then she was in his arms, and he was holding her like she might disappear if he let go. Marcus stepped back, giving them space, but not leaving. "Not yet." "Thank you," the man said over Sophia's head, looking at Marcus with eyes that held a lifetime of regret. "Thank you for—" He couldn't finish the sentence. "She did the hard part," Marcus said. The man Sophia's father studied Marcus's face. "What's your name?" "Marcus Chen." "Mr. Chen." He extended his hand. "Richard Walsh." Marcus shook it, noting the firm grip, the expensive watch, the way wealth sat on some people like a second skin. "I owe you a debt I can never repay," Richard said. "You don't owe me anything, but you might owe her a conversation." Richard's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "Yes. We have a lot to talk about." Sophia pulled back from her father's embrace. "Marcus has a daughter, Emma. She's 12. Does she?" Richard's attention shifted fully to Marcus. "Then you understand." "I'm trying to. The fear, the feeling that you're always one mistake away from losing everything that matters." Marcus thought about Emma, about all the ways he'd already failed her, all the ways he might fail her still. "Yeah, I understand that." Richard reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. "I'd like to talk more, when you have time, about parenting." "About?" He glanced at Sophia. "About paying attention to what really matters." Marcus took the card. "Richard Walsh, CEO, Walsh Industries." "You're that Walsh." "Guilty." "And Sophia's your daughter." "My only daughter. And apparently I've been doing a terrible job of showing her how much she means to me." Sophia wiped her eyes. "Dad." "No, Sophie. It's true. I've been so focused on building something for you that I forgot to build something with you." Marcus felt like an intruder on this moment, but neither of them seemed ready for him to leave. "Mr. Chen," Richard said, "how do you do it? How do you balance being a parent with everything else?" Marcus almost laughed. "I don't. I fail at it every day, but I keep trying." "And Emma forgives you?" "Emma keeps me honest." Richard looked at his daughter. "Will you keep me honest, Sophie?" "If you let me." "I want to let you." "I want to do better." Sophia nodded, tears still streaming down her face. "I want to do better too." The fog was lifting now, revealing the full span of the bridge, the city beyond, the morning sun trying to break through the clouds. Marcus checked his phone. 7:30. Emma would be late for school if he didn't leave soon. "I should go," he said. "Of course." Richard shook his hand again. "Thank you, Mr. Chen, for everything." Sophia stepped forward and hugged him, quick and fierce. "Thank you for stopping. Thank you for staying." Marcus walked back to his Honda, suddenly exhausted. As he started the engine, he saw Richard and Sophia in his rearview mirror, standing close together, talking quietly. Father and daughter, trying to find their way back to each other. He drove home through lifting fog, thinking about Emma and breakfast, and all the small moments that mattered more than he'd realized. When he pulled into his driveway, she was waiting by the front door, backpack slung over her shoulder. "Dad, where were you?" I called like 3 times. "Sorry, kiddo. I stopped to help someone." "Are they okay?" Marcus thought about Sophia's empty eyes, her father's desperate grip, the way love sometimes looked like absence until you almost lost everything. "Yeah," he said. "I think they're going to be okay." Emma climbed into the passenger seat. "Good. Can we get coffee on the way to school? I'm tired." "Sure. But only if you tell me about your day. Really tell me. Not just fine or whatever." Emma looked at him suspiciously. "Why?" "Because I want to know. Because you matter to me. Because I've been doing a lousy job of showing you that. Dad, you're being weird." "Yeah, well, sometimes weird is what we need." As they drove toward Emma's school, Marcus listened, really listened to his daughter talk about her friends and her teachers and the boy in her math class who kept trying to look at her homework. He asked questions, he laughed at her jokes. He paid attention. It wasn't much, but it was a start. 3 weeks later, Marcus was debugging code at his kitchen table when the doorbell rang. Emma was at her mother's for the weekend, leaving the house unusually quiet except for the hum of his laptop and the distant sound of neighbors mowing lawns. He opened the door to find Richard Walsh standing on his front porch, looking oddly out of place in jeans and a polo shirt. Without the armor of an expensive suit, he seemed smaller somehow. More human. "Mr. Chen, I hope I'm not intruding." Marcus glanced at the black sedan parked at his curb, its driver waiting patiently behind tinted windows. "Not at all. Come in." Richard stepped into the modest living room, his eyes taking in the worn furniture, the stack of Emma's textbooks on the coffee table, the framed photo of Marcus and Emma at last year's father-daughter dance. "Coffee?" Marcus offered. "Please." They sat at the kitchen table, two men who might never have met under normal circumstances, connected now by a moment on a bridge that had changed everything. "How's Sophia?" Marcus asked. Richard's face softened. "Better. Different. We're talking. Really talking for the first time in years." He paused, stirring his coffee absently. "She's seeing someone. A therapist. We both are, actually. Family counseling." "That's good." "It's hard. Harder than I expected. Turns out I've been failing as a father in ways I never even considered." Marcus thought about his own failures, the ones that kept him awake at night. "Join the club." "The difference is, you've been trying. I've been absent, physically present, but emotionally unavailable. Building an empire and missing my daughter's childhood. You're here now. Because of you. Because you stopped on that bridge and showed me what paying attention actually looks like." Richard reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. "I wanted to give you this." Marcus opened it to find a check with more zeros than he'd ever seen in one place. He stared at it for a long moment, then set it on the table between them. "I can't take this. Mr. Chen. Marcus. Marcus, you saved my daughter's life. This is nothing compared to what I owe you. You don't owe me anything, and I didn't save her life. She saved it herself." Richard leaned back in his chair. "The therapist says the same thing, that Sophia made the choice to step back, to call me, to ask for help, but she might not have made that choice if you hadn't been there. Maybe, or maybe she would have found another reason to stay. People are stronger than we think." "Are they?" Marcus thought about this, about Emma navigating middle school politics and his own divorce, about the single mothers in his neighborhood juggling 2 jobs and still showing up for PTA meetings, about Sophia, 17 and hollow-eyed, finding the courage to tell her father she needed him. Yeah, they are. Richard picked up the check, folded it, put it back in his pocket. "What if I told you I had another proposition?" "I'd listen." "Sophia wants to meet Emma." Marcus blinked. "Emma?" "She's been asking about her. About what it's like to have a father who pays attention. Who asks questions and listens to the answers." "I'm not a perfect father, Richard. I mess up all the time. But you're present. That's what she wants to understand, what it feels like to be seen by a parent." Marcus considered this. Emma was curious about everything, especially people. She'd probably pepper Sophia with questions about clothes and music and what it was like to be rich, but she'd also notice things, the sadness behind Sophia's smile, the way she held herself like she was afraid of taking up too much space. What does Sophia think she'll get out of meeting a 12-year-old? Perspective, maybe? Hope. The therapist thinks it might help her see that relationships between parents and children don't have to be transactional, that love can exist without conditions or achievements. "And what do you think?" Richard was quiet for a long moment. "I think my daughter is drowning, and she's reaching for anything that might keep her afloat." "If that's your family, if that's the example of what healthy looks like, then yes, I want her to see that." Marcus thought about Emma, about her resilience and her kindness and her ability to find joy in small things. about how she'd handled the divorce with more grace than either of her parents, about how she still believed that people were basically good, even when the evidence suggested otherwise. "Okay," he said. "But we do this right. No pressure, no forced bonding, just two kids hanging out." "Of course. And Richard? If this goes sideways, if it hurts either of them, it stops." "Immediately." "Agreed." They shook hands across the kitchen table, sealing a deal that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with hope. The following Saturday, Marcus drove Emma to Golden Gate Park, explaining carefully that they were meeting some new friendsa, father and daughter, who'd been going through a hard time. "Like when you and Mom got divorced?" Emma asked from the passenger seat. "Different kind of hard time, but yeah, sort of." "Is the girl my age?" "Older, 17. Emma's eyes lit up. "Cool. Is she nice?" "I think so. But she's been sad lately. So maybe just be yourself. Don't try to fix anything. Dad, I'm 12. I don't fix things. I just exist." Marcus smiled. Sometimes Emma's wisdom caught him off guard. "Right. Just exist then." They found Richard and Sophia by the Japanese tea garden, sitting on a bench and looking like they were trying to figure out how to be father and daughter. Sophia wore dark jeans and a simple sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. Without the designer clothes and desperate emptiness, she looked like what she was, a teenager trying to find her place in the world. "Hi," Emma said, walking up to them with the confidence that only 12-year-olds possessed. "I'm Emma. You must be Sophia." Sophia, smilita, real smile this time. "Hi, Emma. Your dad told me a lot about you." "Good things, I hope." "Very good things." Richard stood and shook Emma's hand formally, which made her giggle. "It's nice to meet you, Emma. Thank you for coming." "No problem. Dad said you guys needed friends. We're good at being friends, aren't we, Dad?" Marcus felt that familiar pride-terror combination that came with watching his daughter navigate the world. "We try." They walked through the park together, an unlikely group bound by circumstance and hope. Emma chattered easily about school and soccer and the book she was reading, her natural curiosity drawing Sophia out of her shell. "Do you like being rich?" Emma asked suddenly, with the bluntness that made Marcus want to crawl under a rock. Sophia laughed, the first genuine laugh Marcus had heard from her. "That's a very direct question. Sorry. Mom says I don't have a filter." "No, it's okay. I like direct questions. And the answer is, I don't know. I've never been anything else." "But do you have everything you want?" Sophia glanced at her father, who was listening intently. "I have everything I thought I wanted, but it turns out that's not the same thing." "What do you actually want?" "To matter. To feel like I belong somewhere." Emma nodded seriously. "That makes sense. I felt like that when my parents got divorced. Like maybe I didn't fit anywhere anymore." "What changed?" "I realized I fit with them. Separately. And that was okay. Different, but okay." They stopped by the playground, where Emma immediately gravitated toward the swings. Sophia followed, looking uncertain. "You can swing," Emma said. "There's no age limit on fun." So they swung together, the 17-year-old and the 12-year-old, pumping their legs and reaching for the sky, while their fathers watched from a nearby bench. "She's remarkable," Richard said quietly. "She's something," Marcus agreed. "How's Sophia doing? Really?" "Some days are better than others. The therapist says it's normal that healing isn't linear, but she's trying. We both are. That's all any of us can do." They watched their daughters in comfortable silence for a while. Emma was teaching Sophia some complicated game that involved jumping off the swings at precisely the right moment. Sophia was laughing, actually laughing, her face bright with something Marcus hadn't seen before: joy. "Marcus," Richard said eventually, "can I ask you something?" "Sure. How do you do it? How do you balance being present for Emma while still living your own life?" Marcus thought about this. About the late nights coding after Emma went to bed, the dates he'd canceled because she had a fever, the dreams he'd deferred because being a father came first. "I don't think you balance it," he said finally. I think you integrate it. Emma isn't separate from my life, she is my life. The best part of it. But your career, your relationships, are all better because of her. She makes me want to be worth knowing. Richard was quiet for a long moment. I built Walsh Industries for Sophia, to leave her something, but I forgot to build a relationship with her. It's not too late. Isn't it? She's 17. Almost grown. Marcus watched Emma push Sophia higher on the swing, both of them shrieking with laughter. My dad used to say that being a parent doesn't have an expiration date. Emma's going to need me when she's 27, just as much as she needs me now, differently, but just as much. What kind of different? I don't know yet, but I want to find out. Richard smiled, and for the first time since Marcus had met him, he looked genuinely hopeful. I want to find out too. They spent the rest of the afternoon wandering through the park. Emma showed Sophia her favorite climbing tree. Sophia taught Emma a card game her grandmother had shown her years ago. They fed ducks and shared ice cream and talked about everything and nothing. As the sun began to set, they found themselves back at the Japanese tea garden, sitting in a circle on the grass. This was fun, Emma announced. Can we do it again? Sophia looked at her father, then back at Emma. I'd like that, if it's okay with everyone. More than okay? Richard said. Same, Marcus agreed. Emma grinned. Cool, Sophia, do you want to come to my soccer game next weekend? Dad always comes, but it would be fun to have another person cheering for me. You want me to come to your soccer game? Duh. That's what friends do. Sophia's eyes filled with tears, but this time they were good tears. I'd love to come to your soccer game. Awesome, Dad. Can Sophia and Mr. Walsh come to dinner after? I want to show her my room. Marcus looked at Richard, who nodded. Sure, kiddo, if they want to. We want to, Sophia said quickly. As they walked back to their cars, Emma fell into step beside Sophia while the fathers trailed behind. Sophia, Emma said, can I tell you something? Of course. My dad was really sad after the divorce. Like, really sad. And I didn't know how to help him. What did you do? I just stayed. And asked him questions. And listened when he answered. And eventually, he got less sad. That's it? That's it? Sometimes people just need to know someone cares enough to pay attention. Sophia stopped walking and looked down at this wise 12-year-old who somehow understood exactly what she needed to hear. Emma, she said, you're going to be an amazing grown-up. Thanks, you're going to be okay too. How do you know? Emma shrugged. Because you're here, because you're trying, because your dad loves you enough to learn how to show it. They reached the parking lot, where the black sedan waited beside Marcus's Honda. The contrast was stark wealth and modesty, power and simplicity, but somehow, in this moment, it didn't matter. Thank you, Richard said, shaking Marcus's hand. For today. For everything. Thank you for trusting us with Sophia. Sophia hugged Emma goodbye, holding on perhaps a moment longer than necessary. See you next weekend? Definitely. And Sophia, text me if you want to talk about anything. Dad gave me a phone finally, and I'm very good at giving advice. I'll remember that. As they drove home, Emma was uncharacteristically quiet. You okay, kiddo? Marcus asked. Yeah, just thinking. About what? About how lucky I am. Lucky how? To have a dad who shows up, who asks questions, who cares about the answers. Marcus felt his throat tighten. I'm the lucky one. We both are. They drove the rest of the way in comfortable silence, the evening light fading to purple around them. Marcus thought about the bridge, about fog and desperation, and the moment when everything could have gone wrong. About second chances and the weight of being needed. About how sometimes saving someone else was just another way of saving yourself. The soccer game was a disaster. Not Emma's performance-ish, scored twice, and played with the fierce determination that made Marcus's chest swell with pride. The disaster was everything else. Richard and Sophia arrived in the sedan, which immediately drew stares from the other parents. Designer sunglasses, expensive casual wear, the kind of understated wealth that whispered rather than shouted. They tried to blend in, but they might as well have been wearing signs that said, "Billionaire family attempting to be normal." It got worse when one of the mothers recognized Richard from a magazine cover and started a chain reaction of whispers and pointed looks. By halftime, half the sideline was more interested in watching the Walsh family than the game. Sophia shrank into herself, the lightness from the park visit evaporating under the weight of unwanted attention. She sat rigidly beside Marcus, her hands clenched in her lap. "I shouldn't have come," she murmured, during a particularly loud burst of whispers from behind them. "Hey," Marcus said quietly, "Emma wanted you here. That's all that matters. Everyone's staring. Let them stare. You're not performing for them." But Richard was struggling too. Marcus could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he checked his phone compulsively, the practiced smile that never quite reached his eyes when other parents approached with transparent attempts at conversation. After the game Emma's team won 3-1, the parents gathered for the usual post-game socializing. Emma bounded over, grass-stained and grinning, completely oblivious to the undercurrents of adult weirdness swirling around her. "Did you see my second goal?" she asked Sophia excitedly. "It was amazing," Sophia said, and her smile was genuine. "You're really good." "Thanks, Dad. Can we go get pizza? I'm starving." Before Marcus could answer, one of the other mothers appeared at his elbow, Jennifer Morrison, whose daughter played defense and whose husband owned 3 car dealerships. "Marcus, you didn't tell us you were friends with the Walsh family," she said with a brightness that felt aggressive. "Richard, Sophia, this is Jennifer," Marcus said reluctantly. "Such a pleasure," Jennifer gushed, extending her hand to Richard. "I had no idea you were interested in youth soccer. Are you thinking of sponsoring the league?" Richard's smile went sharp. "Just here to watch the game." Of course. It's so nice when busy people make time for community events. I'm sure you don't get many opportunities to see how normal families live." The words hung in the air like a slap. Marcus felt his jaw clench, but before he could respond, Emma stepped forward. "Mr. Walsh and Sophia are our friends," she said with 12-year-old directness. "They don't need opportunities to see anything. They just wanted to watch me play soccer." Jennifer's smile faltered. "Oh, I didn't mean—" "It's fine," Richard said smoothly, but Marcus could see the hurt beneath the polish. "We should probably head out anyway." "No," Emma said firmly. "You promised to come to dinner." "I made dessert." Sophia looked between her father and Emma, something shifting in her expression. "You made dessert?" "Brownies. From a box, but still. And I want to show you my room." "Emma," Marcus started. "Dad, we're going home for dinner. All of us. Right now." There was something in his daughter's voice that brooked no argument, a protectiveness that reminded Marcus of himself at his fiercest moments. "Right," he said. "Let's go home." The Honda was a tight fit for 4 people, but Emma chattered the whole way, filling the awkward silence with stories about her teammates and questions about Sophia's school. By the time they reached the house, some of the tension had eased. Marcus's kitchen felt even smaller with Richard Walsh sitting at the table, but Emma bustled around like a tiny hostess, serving leftover lasagna and insisting that everyone try her brownies before they'd finished the main course. "These are really good," Sophia said, taking a second brownie. "The secret is extra chocolate chips. Dad says there's no such thing as too much chocolate." "Your dad sounds wise." "He has his moments." After dinner, Emma dragged Sophia upstairs to see her room, leaving Marcus and Richard alone with the dishes. "I'm sorry about today," Richard said, drying a plate with unnecessary precision. "The attention, the questions. I should have thought about how our presence would affect things. It's not your fault people are idiots." "Isn't it? I've spent so much time building this public persona that I forgot how to just be a person, a father watching his friend's daughter play soccer." Marcus handed him another plate. "You're figuring it out." "Am I? Because it doesn't feel like it. It feels like I'm failing at everything: business, parenting, even basic social interaction." "Join the club." Richard looked at him. "You make it look easy." I make it look practiced, there's a difference. From upstairs came the sound of Emma's music, mixed with laughter. Whatever the girls were doing up there, it sounded like friendship. She's good for Sophia, Richard said. Emma, she doesn't see the money or the public image. She just sees a person who needs a friend. That's Emma's superpower. She cuts straight to what matters. What matters? People, connection, kindness. They finished the dishes in comfortable silence. Two men learning to navigate the complexities of raising daughters in a world that seemed determined to make everything harder than it needed to be. When the girls came back downstairs, Sophia's face was bright with something Marcus hadn't seen before, the easy joy of teenage friendship. "Dad, can Emma come stay at our house next weekend?" Sophia asked. "I want to show her the city." Richard looked at Marcus, a question in his eyes. "If it's okay with her father." "And if you're sure," Marcus said to Sophia. "That's a big responsibility." "I'm sure. I want to show her Chinatown and the museum, and maybe we could go shopping." "If that's okay." Emma bounced on her toes. "Can I, Dad, please?" Marcus thought about his daughter in Richard's world, the mansion in Pacific Heights, the staff, the overwhelming wealth. But then he looked at Sophia's face, hopeful and eager, and made his decision. "Okay, but you check in with me, and you listen to Sophia and Mr. Walsh." "I will. This is going to be so cool." As they said their goodbyes at the door, Sophia pulled Marcus aside. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for today, for Emma, for not making me feel like a charity case." "You're not a charity case. You're family." The word surprised them both. Family. Not the family you were born into, but the family you chose. The family you built from moments of connection and acts of kindness. Sophia hugged him then, quick and fierce. "I'll take good care of her, I promise." "I know you will." After they left, Marcus and Emma cleaned up the kitchen together, working in the easy rhythm they'd developed over the years. "Dad," Emma said as she put away the last of the dishes. "Yeah? Sophia's dad is really rich, isn't he?" "Yeah, really rich. But he's sad." "Why do you think that?" Emma considered this with the seriousness she brought to all important questions. "Because he doesn't know how to just be happy. Like, when you smiled at my goals today, you were just happy. When he smiled, it looked like work." Marcus marveled at his daughter's insight. Maybe he's learning. Maybe. Sophia says he's trying to be better. What do you think? "I think people can change if they want to badly enough. And I think he wants to badly enough." "What makes you say that?" "Because he came to my soccer game. He didn't have to do that. He could have just given Sophia money or bought her something. But he came and sat on uncomfortable bleachers and cheered for a kid he barely knows because his daughter asked him to." Marcus stopped drying the pot he was holding and looked at his daughter, really looked at her. When had she gotten so wise? "You're pretty smart, you know that?" Emma grinned. "I get it from my dad." The following weekend, Marcus drove Emma to the Walsh house in Pacific Heights, trying not to let his anxiety show. The mansion sat behind iron gates like something from a magazine, all glass and stone and careful landscaping. Richard met them at the door, looking more relaxed than Marcus had seen him. "Welcome to our home." The house was beautiful in the way that money could make things beautiful, perfect furniture, perfect art, perfect everything. But it felt cold somehow, like a museum where people happen to live. Emma walked through the rooms with wide eyes, but no obvious intimidation. She complimented the paintings and asked thoughtful questions about the architecture and generally behaved like herself, which was exactly what Sophia needed. "Your house is really pretty," Emma told Sophia as they stood in the massive living room. "But where do you hang out?" "Hang out? You know, like, where do you watch TV and eat snacks and be messy?" Sophia looked puzzled. We have a media room. Can you show me?" The media room was gorgeous and sterile, with a massive screen and leather seating that looked like it had never been used. "This is nice," Emma said diplomatically. "But where do you put your feet up?" "Put my feet up?" Emma plopped down on the pristine leather sofa and immediately curled her legs under her. "Like this. Where do you get comfortable?" Sophia perched carefully on the edge of the cushion. I guess I don't really get comfortable. Why not? It's your house. I don't know. It doesn't feel like mine. Emma looked around the perfect room with its perfect everything. Maybe we could make it feel more like yours. How? I don't know. Put up some pictures you actually like? Get some pillows that aren't beige? Make it messy? Sophia laughed. My father would hate that. Would he? Or would he just think it was different? Before Sophia could answer, Richard appeared in the doorway. How are you girls doing? Sophia's giving me the tour, Emma said. This room is really fancy. Thank you, Sophia. Why don't you show Emma your room? They headed upstairs, leaving Marcus and Richard alone in the perfect living room. Nice house, Marcus said. It's too much, Richard replied immediately. I bought it to impress people I don't even like. Does Sophia like it? I don't think Sophia likes anything anymore, or at least she doesn't let herself like things. They could hear the girls upstairs, Emma's voice bright with enthusiasm, Sophia's responses becoming more animated as the afternoon wore on. She sounds happy, Marcus observed. She does. When was the last time I heard her laugh like that? Marcus didn't answer. Some questions weren't meant to be answered. Later, after he'd picked up Emma and listened to her excited recap of the day, the shopping trip, the museum visit, the dinner at a restaurant where Sophia had actually ordered something she wanted, instead of the salad she thought she should have, Marcus found himself thinking about houses and homes and the difference between them. His own house was small and cluttered and far from perfect, but it was theirs. Emma's soccer cleats by the door, her artwork on the refrigerator, the comfortable chaos of a life being lived. The Walsh mansion was beautiful, but it wasn't a home. It was a showcase, a statement, a place where perfection mattered more than comfort. But maybe that was changing. Maybe Richard was learning the difference between building something impressive and building something meaningful. Maybe they all were. The call came at 2:17 a.m. on a Tuesday in November. Marcus fumbled for his phone, heart already racing with the particular terror that comes with middle-of-the-night calls. Emma stirred in the next room but didn't wake. Marcus? Richard's voice was tight, controlled in the way that barely contained panic. I'm sorry to call so late, but what happened? Sophia's missing. Marcus sat up, suddenly fully awake. Missing how? She was supposed to be at a friend's house for a sleepover. The mother called an hour ago. Sophia never showed up. Her phone goes straight to voicemail. I've called everyone I can think of. Marcus was already getting dressed, phone balanced between his shoulder and ear. Where have you looked? Everywhere. Her school, the coffee shop she likes, the bookstore downtown. I've driven every street between here and Emma's school 3 times. Richard. Marcus's voice was calm, steady. Have you called the police? A pause. Not yet, I thought. I hoped. Call them. Now. I'm coming over. You don't have to. I'm coming over. Marcus left a note for Emma, emergency. Back soon. Call if you need anything, and drove through empty streets toward Pacific Heights. The city looked different at 3 a.m., stripped of its daytime energy, raw and honest in the darkness. He found Richard in the massive living room, still in yesterday's clothes, surrounded by the detritus of a desperate search, phone numbers, scrawled on napkins, printed photos, a laptop open to social media accounts. The police are coming, Richard said without preamble. They want a recent photo, a list of friends, details about what she was wearing. Marcus sat down across from him. Tell me about yesterday. How was she? Good. Better than she's been in weeks. She was excited about seeing Emma this weekend, talking about maybe applying to Berkeley next year. She seemed hopeful. What changed? Richard's hands shook as he reached for his coffee cup. I don't know. That's the hell of it, I don't know. Walk me through yesterday. Everything. She came down for breakfast around 9. We talked about her college essay, about whether she wanted to visit the Berkeley campus. She seemed engaged, interested. Then she went to school. How did she seem when she got home? I wasn't here. I had meetings until 7. By the time I got back, she'd already left for the sleepover. Marcus felt something cold, settle in his stomach. You didn't see her before she left? No. She left a note saying she'd be at Madison's house, that she'd call in the morning. What did the note say exactly? Richard pulled out a piece of paper, expensive, stationery, careful handwriting. Dad, staying at Madison's tonight. We'll call you tomorrow. Love you. Marcus read it twice, something nagging at him. Richard, when's the last time Sophia left you a handwritten note? What do you mean? She's 17. Kids her age text. They don't write formal notes on stationery. The realization hit Richard like a physical blow. You think she planned this? You think she never intended to go to Madison's? I think she wanted you to have time before you realized she was gone. Time for what? Marcus didn't answer immediately. Instead, he asked, Richard, what happened in your meetings yesterday? Anything that might have upset her? No, nothing. Just the usual business budget reviews, quarterly projections. Although, he stopped. What? There was a reporter. Called the office around 4, asking questions about Sophia. Something about a piece they were writing on the children of tech billionaires. My assistant handled it, but did Sophia know about the call? She might have. My assistant might have mentioned it when she called to check if I was coming home for dinner. Marcus closed his eyes. A reporter sniffing around asking questions about Sophia. The violation of privacy, the threat of exposure, the reminder that her life wasn't really her own. She ran, he said quietly. From what? From being a story. From being the billionaire's daughter instead of just Sophia. The doorbell rang, interrupting them. 2 police officers, professional and kind, asking the same questions Marcus had asked but with notebooks and protocols. Richard answered mechanically, his voice growing more strained with each detail. While Richard talked to the police, Marcus stepped outside and called Emma. Dad? Her voice was sleepy but alert. What's wrong? Sophia's missing. Her dad asked me to help look for her. Missing how? She told her dad she was staying at a friend's house, but she never showed up. We don't know where she is. Emma was quiet for a moment. Dad, I think I know where she might be. Where? She told me about this place she goes sometimes when she needs to think. A bookstore cafe in North Beach that stays open late. She said it was the only place she could go where nobody knew who she was. What's it called? City Lights? Something like that? She said it was near a big church. Marcus felt hope flicker in his chest. You're brilliant, kiddo. Stay inside, okay? I'll call you when we find her. You will find her, right? Yeah, we'll find her. He went back inside and found Richard finishing with the police. They'd issued a bolo, contacted hospitals, started the machinery of an official search. I might know where she is, Marcus said. City Lights bookstore sat at the corner of Columbus and Broadway, like a beacon in the night, its windows glowing warm against the fog. Marcus had been there before, years ago, back when he'd thought he might be a writer instead of a programmer. It was the kind of place that welcomed night wanderers and lost souls. They found Sophia in the back corner, curled in an armchair with a cup of tea and a book she wasn't reading. She looked small in the oversized chair, young and fragile and utterly alone. Richard stopped when he saw her, his face crumpling with relief, and something deeper, the recognition of how close he'd come to losing her again. Sophie, he said softly. She looked up, startled, then resigned. Hi, Dad. Can we sit with you? She nodded toward the empty chairs across from her. The bookstore was nearly empty at 4 a.m. just, a few insomniacs and night shift workers seeking refuge from the darkness. I'm sorry, Sophia said before either of them could speak. I know you were worried. I needed to disappear for a while. Because of the reporter? Marcus asked gently. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. You know about that. Your dad mentioned it. What did they want to know? Everything. My friends, my school, my relationship with my father, whether I felt like I was living in his shadow, whether I ever felt pressure to be perfect. What did you tell them? Nothing. I hung up. But they'll call back. They always do. And eventually someone will pay enough attention to figure out that Richard Walsh's daughter isn't the poised, confident heiress they expect her to be. Richard leaned forward. Sophie, I can handle the press. I can make them leave you alone. Can you? Because I've been Richard Walsh's daughter my whole life, and I don't know how to be anything else. I don't know who I am when I'm not performing for cameras or living up to expectations I never asked for. You're my daughter, that's all you need to be. But what does that mean? Really? Because for 17 years, being your daughter has meant being perfect, being invisible when you needed to work, being the kind of child who reflects well on your success. The words hit Richard like physical blows. Marcus watched his friend absorb the truth of what his daughter was saying, saw him recognize the patterns he'd created without meaning to. I never wanted that for you, Richard said quietly. I know, but it's what I learned. And now, I don't know how to unlearn it. They sat in silence for a moment, surrounded by thousands of books, stories of people finding their way through darkness. Sophie, Marcus said carefully, what would it look like if you could be anyone you wanted? If nobody knew your last name or how much money your father had? Sophia considered this. I think I'd want to be a teacher. Elementary school, maybe. I like kids, they don't care about your bank account, they just care whether you're nice to them. That's a beautiful dream. It's not practical. Teachers don't make enough money to be independent, and Dad would never understand. I'd understand, Richard said quickly. Sophie, if you want to teach, teach. Money isn't everything, isn't it? Your whole life is about money. My whole life is about providing for you. But if I've provided so much that I've suffocated your dreams, then I've failed at the only thing that really matters. Sophia looked at her father with something like surprise. You really mean that? I mean it. I want you to be happy. I want you to find whatever it is that makes your life worth living and pursue it with everything you have. Even if it means being ordinary? There's nothing ordinary about kindness. Nothing ordinary about choosing to spend your life making children feel valued and understood. That's extraordinary. For the first time since Marcus had known her, Sophia looked at her father without walls between them, without the careful distance she'd maintained to protect herself from disappointment. I'm scared, she admitted. Of what? Of trying and failing, of being judged, of finding out that I'm not as strong as I think I am. Sophie, Richard's voice was gentle. You survived 17 years of being my daughter. You survived being so lost that you stood on a bridge and considered giving up. You survived all of that, and you're still here, still fighting, still hoping for something better. If that's not strength, I don't know what is. Sophia started crying then, not the desperate tears of the bridge, but the cleansing tears of someone finally allowing herself to be seen. Marcus felt like an intruder on this moment, but also grateful to witness it. This was what healing looked like, messy and painful and beautiful. I want to go home, Sophia said eventually. Okay. Not to hide. To figure out how to build a life that feels like mine. We'll figure it out together. What if I mess up? Then we'll figure that out together too. They gathered their things and walked out into the San Francisco dawn, fog lifting to reveal a city waking up. Marcus thought about Emma, probably still asleep, probably dreaming of normal 12-year-old things. He thought about the call he'd have to make to cancel his morning meetings, the way priorities shifted when someone you cared about needed you. Marcus, Sophia said as they reached their cars. Thank you for knowing where to find me, for understanding. Thank you for letting us find you. I want Emma to know that I'm okay. That I'm going to be okay. She'll want to hear it from you. Can I call her later? She'd like that. As Marcus drove home through the empty streets, he thought about the fragility of human connection, how easily it could be broken, and how carefully it had to be tended. He thought about the bridge where this had all started, about a moment of desperation that had become a foundation for something stronger. Most of all, he thought about Emma, sleeping safely in her bed, surrounded by the comfortable chaos of a life built on love rather than expectation. When she woke up, he'd tell her that Sophia was safe, that sometimes people ran away not because they wanted to disappear forever, but because they needed to find their way back to themselves. And that sometimes the best thing you could do was simply be there when they were ready to come home. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the auditorium of Lincoln Elementary School, watching his daughter receive an award for academic excellence. Emma beamed from the stage, her gap-toothed smile bright under the harsh fluorescent lights. But it wasn't Emma's achievement that made his throat tight with emotion, it was the sight of Sophia Walsh sitting in the third row, applauding with genuine pride for a 12-year-old she'd helped tutor through a difficult semester of math. Sophia looked different now. Her hair was shorter, more practical. She wore jeans and a simple sweater instead of designer clothes. But the biggest change was in her eyes. They were alive again, bright with purpose and possibility. After the ceremony, they gathered outside the school, an unlikely family forged in crisis and strengthened by choice. "I can't believe you won the math award," Sophia said, hugging Emma tight. "Remember when you thought fractions were impossible?" "You're a really good teacher," Emma replied. "Dad says you're going to be even better when you go to college." "Speaking of which," Richard said, pulling an envelope from his jacket pocket. "This came yesterday." Sophia took the letter with trembling hands. Berkeley's logo was visible through the thin envelope, and Marcus held his breath as she tore it open. "I got in," she whispered. Then louder, "I got in." Emma whooped and threw her arms around Sophia. Richard's smile was brilliant, not the polished public smile Marcus had first seen, but something real and unguarded. "The education program?" Marcus asked. "The education program," Sophia confirmed, "with a partial scholarship for academic merit." "I'm so proud of you," Richard said, and his voice cracked slightly on the words. They celebrated with ice cream at Emma's favorite shop, cramming into a booth meant for 3 people and talking over each other with the easy chaos of family. Sophia showed them pictures of the Berkeley campus on her phone, pointing out the buildings where she'd take classes, the dorms where she might live. "It's only an hour away," she said, addressing the worry Marcus could see in Richard's eyes. "I can come home on weekends." "You don't have to come home every weekend," Richard said carefully. "You should experience college life, make friends, be a normal teenager. I want to come home sometimes, to see you and Emma and Marcus. You're my family." The word still carried weight, still felt precious and fragile and miraculous. Family, not the one you were born into, but the one you chose to build. Later that evening, after Emma had gone to bed and the dishes were clean, Marcus found himself on his back porch with a beer and his thoughts. The fog was rolling in from the bay, softening the edges of the city lights. His phone buzzed with a text from Richard. "Thank you for today." "For everything." Marcus smiled and typed back. "Emma won that award all by herself." "You know what I mean." Marcus did know. He meant the tutoring sessions in Marcus's kitchen, where Sophia had discovered she loved teaching almost as much as Emma loved learning. He meant the family dinners that had become a weekly tradition, the way they'd all learned to be themselves together. He meant the second chance that had grown into something none of them had expected. Another text came through. "Dinner Sunday? Sophia wants to cook. Emma would never forgive me if I said no." 7 p.m. then. "And Marcus?" "Yeah? I'm a better father because of you. A better person." Marcus stared at the message for a long moment before responding, "We're all better because of each other." Sunday dinner had become sacred in their strange little family. They took turns hosting, cooking elaborate meals, or ordering pizza with equal ceremony. Tonight was Sophia's turn, and she'd spent the entire day preparing Richard's childhood favorite lasagna, made from his grandmother's recipe. "It's probably terrible," she warned as they gathered around the Walsh family's dining room table. "I've never actually cooked anything this complicated before." "It smells amazing," Emma said diplomatically, though Marcus caught her eyeing the salad with more enthusiasm than the main course. The lasagna was, in fact, slightly burnt on top and too watery in the middle. But it was made with love, and they ate it with grateful appreciation, while Sophia narrated every mistake she'd made in preparation. "Next time," Richard said, "we'll cook together. My grandmother used to say that the best recipes require 4 hands." "Did she really say that?" Sophia asked. "No, but she should have." After dinner, They played Emma's current favorite board game, a complicated strategy game that she invariably won through a combination of luck and 12-year-old intuition. As they packed up the pieces, Sophia grew quiet. "What's on your mind?" Marcus asked. "I've been thinking about the bridge," she said carefully. "About that morning when you found me." The room went still. They'd talked around that day many times, but never directly about it. "What about it?" Richard asked gently. "I keep wondering what would have happened if Marcus hadn't stopped, if he'd driven past like everyone else." "But he didn't," Emma said simply. "He stopped." "Why, though? Why did you stop?" Marcus considered the question he'd asked himself dozens of times. "Honestly, I almost didn't. I was running late. I was tired. I had my own problems. But something about that morning felt different, like I was supposed to be there." "Supposed to be there?" "My dad used to say that we're all just walking each other home, that our job is to pay attention to who might need help along the way." "And you think I needed help walking home?" Marcus looked at this young woman who'd found her way from despair to hope, from isolation to belonging. "I think we all did." Sophia nodded slowly. "I want to do something." "What kind of something?" "I want to volunteer at a crisis hotline, while I'm in college. I want to be the voice on the other end of the line for kids who feel like I felt." Richard's eyes filled with tears. "Sophie, that's beautiful. I know it won't be easy. I know I'll need training, supervision, but I think I understand what it feels like to be invisible, to need someone to notice." "You'd be good at that," Emma said. "You're good at paying attention." "I learned from the best." They finished cleaning up in comfortable silence, moving around each other with the practiced ease of people who'd chosen to become family. As Marcus and Emma prepared to leave, Sophia pulled him aside. "Marcus, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you ever regret it, stopping that morning? Your life got so much more complicated because of me." Marcus thought about the late-night calls, the emotional crises, the way his simple life had expanded to include Richard's wealth and Sophia's pain and all the messy complications of caring about people. "No," he said without hesitation. "My life got bigger because of you, Richard, more meaningful." "Even when it's hard?" "Especially when it's hard." Sophia hugged him then, the same fierce hug she'd given him that first day on the bridge when she'd stepped back from the edge. "Thank you," she whispered, "for seeing me. Thank you for letting me." As they drove home through the fog-softened city, Emma was unusually quiet. "Penny, for your thoughts," Marcus said. "I was thinking about Sophia's question, about what would have happened if you hadn't stopped. What do you think would have happened?" Emma considered this with the seriousness she brought to all important questions. "I think someone else would have stopped, maybe not that day, but eventually, because she's worth stopping for." "What makes you say that?" "Because she's kind and smart, and she makes people feel seen. The universe doesn't waste people like that." Marcus felt his chest tighten with pride and wonder. When had his daughter become so wise? "I think you're right," he said. "I know I'm right, but I'm glad it was you who stopped. I'm glad she's part of our family now." "Me too, kiddo, me too." They drove the rest of the way home in comfortable silence, the city lights blurring past like memories made manifest. Marcus thought about bridges, not just the one where he'd found Sophia, but all the invisible bridges people built between each other every day. Bridges made of attention and kindness, and the simple decision to stop when someone needed help. At home, as Emma got ready for bed, she called out from her room, "Dad? Yeah? I love our weird family." Marcus smiled as he turned off the lights. "I love our weird family, too." Later, lying in bed and listening to the city settle into sleep around him, Marcus thought about his father's words. "We're all just walking each other home." He'd spent years thinking that meant being responsible for other people's journeys. Now he understood it differently. It meant recognizing that everyone was walking the same path toward connection, toward understanding, toward the place where they belonged. And sometimes, the most important thing you could do was simply notice when someone had lost their way. Sometimes, stopping for a stranger on a bridge in the fog was really just another way of finding your way home. The fog rolled in from the bay, gentle and forgiving, wrapping the city in softness. In the distance, the bridge lights glowed like stars, guiding travelers safely from one shore to another.